Hello, and welcome back to Perfect Word 7.0. Today, we're actually going to deal with the birth of a nation that is going from Abraham and his seed all the way to Moshe delivering the baby. Check it out. As I've been looking at the birth of Israel, I noticed something while reading Genesis. Starting with Abraham to the time of the Exodus, we see this played out perfectly. Abraham formulates the seed and Moshe delivers the baby. Check this out. We'll start with the seed. Genesis 15:3. And Abraham said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now towards heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall your seed be. Now, as I've seen in other writings, this is not referring to Israel, the multitude, but speaking of Messiah. The thing to look at is the term, tell the stars. Let's dissect this term to get a better understanding of it. The first word to look at is tell. What does that actually mean? The word we're looking at is safar, a primitive root properly to score with a mark as a tally or record, by implication to inscribe, and also to enumerate, intensively to recount. This, from my perspective, is Yahweh asking Abraham if he can recount the story told in the stars. He is the first to understand what was written in the Maserat, or zodiac as we call it today. For this page, I won't go further into the whole thing about Maserat, but the seed spoken of here has two meanings that I see. One, this seed is Messiah. The second seed is the belief that the Maserat shows the plan of salvation. So Abraham has now identified the seed that was present in the story told in the constellation. This is how it is that Messiah existed before Abraham. In Revelations, we will see that this child born will become the mother of Messiah. Revelations 12:4. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. 12:5. She bore a child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. We know this is Israel because what happens next is a total inclination of this based on two scriptures. This one, that talks of another type of seed, culminates into this fact. Blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gates of their enemies. This speaks of the people of Israel, Abraham's seed. The next thing to look at is how the descendants of Abraham were implanted in Egypt. With them goes the story that would be told in the family. Realizing that there was only the stars to look at during the night and the story would be passed down through the generations till Yahweh would plant them in Egypt, this family of approximately 70 souls will, from then on, be nourished by Egypt while residing there for the next 400 years. This goes on to a time when something happens and a new Pharaoh comes into being, and he would actually serve as Yahweh's way of inducing labor. Pharaoh starts the process of stopping the children of Israel from growing any further. This, in my mind, is done by Yahweh. Here's the scripture that gives me this thought. Exodus 9:13. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh and say to him, Thus saith Yahweh, God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. 9:14. For at this time I will send all my plagues to your very heart, and on your servants and on your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. Now if I have stretched forth my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, then you would have been cut off from the earth. But indeed for this purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. In Exodus 9:16, it shows that this was Yahweh's doing, and the rest shows why. Now let's take a look at another scripture that likens the nation of Israel as a child. Ezekiel 16:4. As for your nativity, on the day you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed in water to cleanse you. You were not rubbed with salt, nor wrapped in swaddling clothes. 16:5. No eye pitied you to do any of these things for you, to have compassion on you, but you were thrown out into the open field when you yourself were loathed on the day you were born. 16:6. And when I passed by you and saw you struggling in your blood, I said to you in your blood, live. Yes, I said to you in your blood, live. In Ezekiel 16:5, Israel is born and the description of this act follows. Look at 16:4. It gives me the understanding of what was happening when the children of Israel made the golden calf. This illustrates what it means in stating, nor were you washed in water to cleanse you, you were not rubbed with salt, nor wrapped in swaddling cloth. This cleansing that was not done was concerning their hearts, still residing in the belief that they were in the age of Taurus and worshiping as the Egyptians did, deifying the bull, personifying Pharaoh as God. This Pharaoh had pushed the point of making gold worship by the people. From my perspective, this is where money is pushed to make people believe that in acquiring it, they would be blessed and become rulers. Before this, men counted their wealth and how many children they had and how many livestock they owned. They weren't cleansed yet because they had not received the commandments and the laws yet. The umbilical cord was still attached by way of them still practicing the worship of Egypt. The statement, when you yourselves were loathed on the day you were born, is about the hatred the Egyptians and the other outer-lying nations had for the children of Israel. The Egyptians couldn't wait to get rid of these people because of the devastation caused by their God. The outer-lying nations were in a panic over the news of Egypt and its demise. This is the birth of Israel as a nation. Funny thing happened one day. I was out ride sharing and a woman got in my car and we started talking about this, and she brought to my attention a very important aspect of birth. That is that birth happens after the cervix is dilated 10 centimeters. I thought this was a killer aspect, seeing as there were 10 plagues. Is it possible that these 10 plagues were the very same thing in the birth process? So Pharaoh is used, as we see above, as the agent inducing labor. The 10 plagues are the dilation of the cervix, and the next part is the breaking of the water. This happens at the parting of the Red Sea. Also comes the cutting off of the umbilical cord from the mother. This is when Pharaoh's army is killed in the returning waters. Snip, snip. The separation of mother and child is complete. From this point, the baby Israel is cleaned up, given clothes, and taught to walk. She is given the commandments and then the law. Israel at this point is a she, not a he. We know this because Israel is the woman that birthed the child that was caught up to Yahweh's throne. Now let's take a look at that in Revelations 12, starting at 4. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Now, we know that Yahweh's throne is the heavens, according to John in Revelations. Revelation 16:17. Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." Now, going back to the issue of the Maseroth, we have to understand that the temple of heaven is the zodiac. But I think it's funny that Yahweh used Egypt as a surrogate woman to birth his child. All the known world at that point knew they were in the age of Taurus, the bull. Abraham is the first to acknowledge the age of Aries, the ram. Now, later on in this website, we'll go into the whole Maseroth thing, but if you want to get the information now, you can read it extensively in this book from Rav Shaul's website. See the link that's there below. So let's look at this in order. Abraham develops the seed in the man. Egypt is impregnated with the seed. Israel enters Egypt. The seed grows in its mother Egypt's womb. The children of Israel increase. A new Pharaoh starts the birth pangs of Israel. It's time for Israel to go to the promised land. Yahweh uses him to induce labor. Pharaoh kills the firstborn. The cervix is dilated 10 centimeters. The 10 plagues are administered and completed. It's time to push. Pharaoh tells Moshe to take his people and go. The child is coming out with great pain. The people are leaving after Passover. The blood of birthing is shed through the death of the Passover lamb and the firstborn of Egypt. The water breaks. The child Israel is at the Red Sea and the waters part. The umbilical cord is cut. The waters return to their position, cutting off the armies of Egypt. There is the birth of Israel, just like the sequence in conceiving a real child.